So UFC Fight Night, Blades vs. Almeida, just took place last night, and despite the main event being a pretty snoozy fight and a very boring decision, the card overall was pretty entertaining, I thought. There was a couple big upsets, a couple fun fights. And yeah, without further ado, let's just get right into it. And the first fight I'm going to be going over is Rinat Fakhretdinov versus Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. Now, this fight was very entertaining. Rinat came out guns blazing as he always does, and he ended up catching Elizeu dos Santos with a left hook, I believe it was, that put him down bad. I thought he was out cold, but he wasn't. He was against the cage. Rinat jumped on top of him, landed some ground and pound, but Zaleski was able to survive. And then the rest of the first round was Rinat, but Zaleski did have some moments. And then in the second round, it was really when Rinat didn't have as much of a dominant start to the round. And it was a pretty close round, but I gave it to Rinat, but Zaleski definitely did have his moments. The second I gave to Rinat, but Zaleski was doing a good job with his counter strikes. His body work was very good. And then towards the end of the second, Rinat started to show some signs of fatigue. He was throwing these huge, heavy looping shots with no setup, winging them all. I think the first one caught Zaleski off guard, but he started to get a read on these wide looping shots and was really just staying out of the way of them with ease. In the third round, Zaleski was having a bit more success, and then towards the second half of the third round, he landed a huge body kick, which is he had been landing those all night, and he landed a huge body kick on Rinat, sent him crashing down to the canvas. Rinat covered up, and it looked like Zaleski was about to finish him. He landed a couple ground and pound shots. Rinat was rolling over trying to recover, and then at one point he completely went flat and covered up, and it looked like the ref was about to step in, but he ended up getting back to his knees and survived and ended up winning, and it ended up being a draw. No, he didn't win it. It was a draw, which I think was the right decision. I think I gave the first two rounds to Rinat 10-9, and then Zaleski won round 3 10-8. So, yeah, I think it was a draw, and it was a bit of a disappointing performance from Rinat. I think me, as well as many other people, expected him to beat Zaleski, if not finish him, but Zaleski showed that he's very tough. He's a game opponent. He showed he's a grizzled vet. And, yeah, I think that the next fight for Rinat should be Michael Moraes. He's unranked, but he's a very legit prospect. They should make him defend his ranking against Michael Moraes, and Elizeu should fight Ponzinibbio next. I think that could be a really entertaining matchup. It was a really good fight, though. Very entertaining from both guys. Both guys looked good, but Rinat looked like he had some cardio issues, which could affect him in the future, especially in 5-round fights. Now, the next fight I'm going to be going over is Vitor Petrino versus Modestas Bukauskas, as unfortunately a few fights, the Ismail Bonfim fight and the Victor Hugo fights both fell through due to the weigh-in. So this is the only other card on the prelims that I'm going to be going over. And it was an entertaining fight. In round one, Modestas looked a lot better than I expected him to. And round one was mostly both guys just getting a feel for their range and their timing. Both guys had a few big shots landed in round... Not big shots, but a few good shots landed in round one. But in round two, Petrino came out as I was expecting him to come out in round one. And he set up a beautiful check hook, and it landed flush. And it immediately sent Bukauskas flying into the canvas, laid out flat. And then he ended up getting up, but it looked like he KO'd him stiff with one shot for a second. Brutal knockout. Great finish. I think Petrino looked great. I think the next fight to make for Vitor Petrino is Carlos Ulberg. I think that's a very entertaining matchup. Both guys are strikers. Petrino does have grappling, but either way, both guys have devastating power. Petrino more so than Ulberg. I think Ulberg has better accuracy and timing. And I think it'd be a very entertaining matchup on the feet. Both guys are on the verge of a ranked opponent, so I think the winner of that one could get a top 15 opponent. And that's the fight to make, I think. The next fight is Elvis Brenner versus Kanan Khrushchevsky. Now, I watched Kanan Khrushchevsky fight on the Contender Series. He looked really good against Dylan Mantello, but I did not realize, this was on me, when I made the predictions video, I thought that Elvis Brenner was fighting Esteban Ribovicis. Either way, I was incorrect, as I predicted a decision or a late KO for Brenner, and he got a brutal first-round KO. Showed some wicked power to get a one-shot KO like that off of a punch that barely clipped him and face-first brutal KO him. That's pretty impressive. I think that an exciting matchup for him would be Renato Moicano. I think that that's a fair matchup. I think that Renato, Renato's ranked, so it's a bit of a step up for him, but I think that would be a really entertaining fight, you know what I mean? Especially because Elvis has had those two back-to-back very impressive wins. I think he deserves to get a fight with a guy like Moicano, and I think it could be a very entertaining fight, You could also give him Drew Dober, but I think Moicano would be entertaining. The next fight I'm going to be going over is Kyle Borralho versus Abus Magomedov. Now, Kyle showed an amazing game plan. He stuck with the game plan the whole fight, he's one of those guys where he always has a great game plan, but he's also able to stick to the game plan. There's guys who have game plans, but they don't stick to them, and they ended up getting goaded into a brawl or whatever. And he didn't do any of that. He stuck to the game plan the whole time. It was really impressive. Showed his fight IQ, showed his faith in his coaching. You know what I mean? Stuff that can take you a long way as a fighter. You know what I mean? There were moments of success for both guys in round 1 and round 2. The biggest moment in round 1, I think, one of the bigger moments in round 1, I think, was when Abu stuffed a huge takedown attempt from Kyle. Kyle landed flat on his face, and then Abu swung a huge head kick that barely missed, but that could have ended the fight right there. And he had a few moments as well throughout the first 2 rounds where he was landing some big shots on Kyle when Kyle was backed up against the cage. And Kyle was mainly having success with his jab. He was landing it very, very well. But in the third, he was having success with the body shots as well. But in the third, he rocked Abus badly and then landed a flying knee. Then Abus again took the flying knee. For a second was all right, and then he just crumbled to the canvas. And it looked like Kyle was going to finish him, but he didn't, and he ended up getting the UD win, as I predicted. But it was a lot less dominant than I predicted. I said it was going to be a very clear, dominant UD. And I think it was a clear decision. It wasn't as dominant as I expected. He called out Duplessis, which I think it's a bit of a step up, obviously, because Duplessis is the number 1 contender. I think he should get a ranked opponent, so I think maybe give him Jack Hermanson, because all the other guys in the top 15, like outside the top 10, are booked right now. So, and if he wants to fight again soon, you should definitely give him Jack Hermanson to get him into those rankings. But if for whatever reason that matchup doesn't work out, I think a fun fight with him could be Joe Pyfer, even though Piper's not ranked. I think Kyle has really earned a shot at the rankings, so I think he deserves that Hermanson fight. But if that doesn't work out, maybe give him Joe Pyfer. That could definitely be an entertaining fight. But yeah, I mean, it was a clear game plan. They clearly wanted to get Abus gassed out, which is he showed in the Strickland fight that he struggles with his gas tank and his cardio, and it worked. He didn't look as fresh in the third. He looked like he was gassed. Abus did, and Kyle really capitalized on it, and it was a really good game plan. The next fight I'm going to be going over is Nascimento versus Don'Tale Mayes. Now, I have to give credit where it's due. This fight was more competitive than I expected. Even though it wasn't the most entertaining fight, it was a lot more competitive than I expected. It was a very rocky first round for Mayes. He got hit with some big shots off of Nascimento, and he was able to weather the storm, and he even landed some big shots of his own in the second and the third, but it wasn't enough to win the fight, and he lost by decision. I predicted Nascimento to win by submission. He won by decision. He seemed to want to strike with Mayes more than grapple. He only had a few sequences where he was going for the takedown. He seemed to want to prove that he could strike with, even though it's not a huge thing to strike with Mayes. I think he wanted to prove that he's improved his striking a lot. I think his next fight should be Jairzinho Rozenstruik. I think that could be a really entertaining matchup. Both guys could win that fight. Next up, the card was Gabriel Bonfim versus Nicolas Dalby. Now, this fight was an absolute barn burner. Just a great fight. It was an even first round. Not even. It was somewhat even on the feet. I mean, in the beginning, like both guys had success on the feet, and then I remember Dalby went for a body lock takedown, got stuffed, and then a little bit later, Bonfim got the time to the body lock very well and got Dalby down and was controlling him very well on the mat. Had used his top pressure extremely well that he's known for, and then he didn't finish him though. And then in the second round, Dalby began to have more moments of success, and after stunning Bonfim with a couple shots, he just swarmed him, and he really kept the pressure on him. And despite taking some good counter shots, like a couple uppercuts from Bonfim when Bonfim was against defense, Dalby was just relentlessly pursuing Bonfim. Once he smelled blood in the water, he was all over him. And he landed a brutal sequence of knees, and he sent Bonfim just crashing face first into the canvas. And he followed up with some great ground and pound shots, sealed the deal, and he won by second round TKO. Stole all of Bonfim's hype. This was a big fight for Bonfim in his hometown, co-main event, and he fumbled the bag. And he got fraud checked bad by Dalby. And it's kind of unfortunate because his brother Ismail was just fraud checked by Benoit Saint Denis. And I guess that one isn't as much because, Benoit Saint Denis is kind of an absolute beast. So it's like, okay, maybe we just underestimated Benoit Saint Denis. But at the end of the day, both the Bonfim brothers have been finished. It's crazy considering the hype that they had when they came in. It was just more than an impressive win for Dalby. It was an absolute statement, and I really counted him out. I thought that he was going to get finished by Bonfim, and I think he deserves a huge step up after that win. I think he deserves a ranked opponent in either maybe Neil Magny or Jack Della Maddalena. I think Jack Della Maddalena could be a very exciting fight, but if they just kind of want to give him a test, they could give him Magny. But I think they should give him JDM, because I think that even though Bonfim's unranked, beating him like that, I think that especially being such a big underdog, I think it's fair to give him a ranked opponent. And Magny and JDM are both pretty close together in the rankings. Now, unfortunately, I have to talk about the main event next. Jailton Almeida versus Derek Lewis. Now, this was such a snoozer. And, like, the most boring fight since Rose Carla 2, probably. Like, Almeida literally did nothing in mount. Had Goddard giving him multiple warnings to be active while having Lewis in mount for minutes at a time. It was just so underwhelming by Almeida. He showed little to no urgency in terms of finishing the fight. He went for a few subs, and he had some moments of ground and pound towards the closing moments, but other than that, he seemed pretty content to just sit on Lewis and just straight lay and pray him and do the bare minimum that he could do so that Goddard wouldn't stand him up. With that being said, there is some blame to be put on Lewis. You know, he allowed himself to get taken down like a minute into every round, and every time he got taken down, pretty much he just let Almeida effortlessly step into mount every single time. It was like a run. It was like a joke, and then it was like Lewis would like initially try to defend, especially in the fifth. Lewis put up a great fight initially, but once Almeida got his hands locked, like Lewis would just be like, yeah, it's over, and would just let him take him down, just lay down on his back, and then Almeida would just step into mount and just sit there the whole round. It was just so boring. And like, yeah, I think Dane versus Almeida is a good fight to make. I'm not that excited for that fight after this one, and I don't know, I feel like the UFC might not be too keen on giving Almeida a matchup like Gane after that absolute snoozer that he put on against Derek Lewis. And he was talking about, oh, did I put on a show for you guys? Did I put on a show? It was like, no. It was one of the worst fights I've ever seen, literally. And it was like so boring. And I was just not, it was impressive in the sense that he dominated him, but it's like Derek Lewis is like not known for his ground game or his takedown defense. So to do that to him is like, yeah, it's impressive to do that to any top guy in the UFC, but like at the end of the day, the fact that he was like barely going for the finish, it was just really unimpressive. I think I think he might have been trying to break the control time record, which I think he did. I think Curtis Blades had it for like 19 minutes something, and I'm pretty sure he broke the record, so I think that maybe that's what he was trying to do. Other than that, the only other explanation is that like he was obviously trying to stay away from the power of Lewis. Like we've seen Derek Lewis be losing fights and then come back and win them. Like with a crazy knockout, like the Volkov fights comes to mind, but there's also been times where he's been on the bottom, just pushed guys off, exploded off them, and then KO'd them. So Jailton was not wrong in wanting to mitigate the risk that is Derek Lewis's power by keeping him down, but just go for the finish. You know what I mean? Like go for some elbows or something while you have him mounted and you're postured up. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I'll see you guys in the next one. Hopefully I'll make another video this week leading up to 295 where I'll be getting some content for you guys there. And I'll see you guys in the next one.